So we're going to talk about motherboards and what they are. So the first question is, what does a motherboard do? What does a motherboard do?
Controls the
Powers the computer.
It is a hub through which everything is connected to the computer and everything goes out of the computer.
So,
It is where all hardware accesses the computer. It's the all in all. The motherboard controls everything coming in and going out of the computer. Okay, so we're going to take a moment and open up the top of our computers.
Is that this part? Or
To do that, these computers, Dell got really nice about putting stuff on. There's a little, hopefully you can see that. There's a little odd-shaped button on the back of these. We'll just pull that out, and it should cause the top to pop up so you can take it off.
how did you do that?
oh yeah, sure enough, like a car.
It says mine is locked.
Like a comment. Dang.
And you won't.
What's different? Well, not on your side.
Oh, I did it.
Right?
Right.
Yeah, I know.
Why'd you put down for the first one?
Okay, do not put the tops on the floor because they get bent.
Where all
I kinda
hardware
got that
connects
off.
to the
What
computer.
you're gonna do is turn this up.
You're smart. Oh, now that
Okay.
is like an
So,
accident.
inside is the motherboard. Now, at the start of today, should have done.
Can I get a stool?
Yes. So what I had here at the beginning talked about motherboards in different types. So there's motherboards in different types. There is one called a standard ATX, and an ATX means it's the biggest motherboard out there. Now, do not put screwdrivers into the motherboard. The biggest one out there, meaning that it has more ability to hold more things. And you're going to notice looking into your motherboard, you're going to see some things that look very much the same. I think yours are white. Yeah. There's a lot more slots on this ATX because it is large. But to do it, you've got to have a large case. If you were very much into doing like heavy graphics or heavy animation, you would want more motherboard because it allows you to put more stuff on it. Then we go to the micro and all the way down. You actually have a BTX. So it's not a standard ATX, it's a standard BTX, meaning it's a little smaller. Huh? Okay, why don't you answer those? So you actually have a Dell BTX motherboard. Dell makes a lot of their own motherboards. It's just what they do. So as we get going and pulling stuff out, when you guys put up today, 2 of you will put your computers down here and 2 over there, and you'll have the components set on top. Again, these still function, and that's part of the goal is to hook them up and play with them, because we can do things to these we can't do to a computer because we don't want to destroy it. Does that make sense? So I'm not going to hold guilty if you break it, but don't do it on purpose. So let's start taking some stuff out. Probably the easiest and first thing we're going to take out is the drive. There is a DVD drive on the front here. To take that out, you just lift up that little blue knob and slide the drive back. Slide the drive backwards. Lift it up and slide the drive backwards. And then undo the cables. Lift it. No, you can let go, but once it's slid backwards, you can let go and just pick it up. And then undo the cables. Now, you should recognize one of those cables. Go ahead and lift it up. You should recognize one of those cables from the other day, right? There's a serial ATX cable, or a serial ATA cable in there. You see that? So we lifted the blue lever, we slid back, lifted it out, and we undid the cables. That first cable is that serial ATA cable that we had before, and the next one's power. That other one is power. And you're gonna see eventually we're gonna pull out the power supply, and that one you're gonna see go. So this is a drive. One of those cheap things about a drive, you'll see there's a little hole right under it. You see the teeny tiny hole? One of the tricks of the trade, if you stick a straightened paper clip into that teeny tiny hole, it'll pop it open no matter what. It's one of those ways you can see if people left CDs or whatever in old cars and find some interesting music. So I'm going to set that aside. The next thing I'm going to take out is I'm going to take out the hard drive. The hard drive is located below. Actually, let me put this up on screen. That will make it easier. That way I'm doing two things at once. So, next thing we're going to take out is the hard drive. It is right down here. I'll put this down here so you can see it. It's right down here. And we're going to do that, there on the very far sides, there are two little pinches out here. And you pinch them and push back. There's two little blue tabs right here. And we pinch them and pull it back and then lift it straight out. And again, you've got an ATA cable and a power cable. And we'll set that aside. Now, hard. There you go. Lift it straight up.
Oh God.
Pull in, and then move this way. These two in. Push this way.
That kind of hurts. Do you take the cables off too?
No.
Okay, take these two. Take these two.
Yeah.
Right
Take
on in.
the cables off.
And then take your forward finger and push back that way.
Hey, do we take the cables off?
Yes. Okay, pull tight.
Is that the hard drive?
Yes.
You're already there. Yeah, you were already there.
Oh, what?
And then do the cable. Now, the hard drive, don't bounce it. And now, later on, when we talk about hard drives, you'll see. Hard drives are fairly delicate. There is a fraction of a hair between the reader and the disk itself, and if it touches, it scratches, and if it scratches, it's done. Yeah, it gets tight in there. That's why I said this one is pretty, as far as spacey, this one has room. There's some of these get really tight, getting stuff apart.
It's been pretty easy.
So forth. Now we're going to take off the power supply. What's wrong?
We still don't have it.
You've had it out. Just lift it straight up.
And now you want to do this part? You gotta take that thing out.
I already know what part you're talking about, Mr. Wheeler.
It's like stairs.
It was one of those cables.
You want to try to skip like
It's
Okay.
this big tube, right?
Huh?
This big thing right here.
Now that is the power supply. Now here's my warning on power supplies. We'll have a whole lecture on power supplies because it's one of those things where people will buy great stuff and they'll have a power supply that's not big enough to run it, and they'll say, my computer's not running good. I put on this cool stuff, but there's not enough power. They just don't realize it. So to get this off, on the back side, there are two little screws. They're black.
That's what I
So you
thought.
take your screwdriver and undo those screws.
I heard that day.
Do we pull them out all the way?
Pull out screws. Now, what you're going to do with those screws is as soon as you get them out and you pull out the power supply, you're going to put them back in their spots. If you don't put them back in their spots, they will fall on the floor and get lost.
Okay, so do I take out the whole tube or just the top?
Well, undo those two screws, and then the cube, and this is the actual part. Oh, they got ours out easy. Usually at the bottom, there's a little, on the very behind it, there's a little push down. By the way, this power supply is one of the things that make these computers not upgradable.
Oh, I see it right here.
What do we do after we take this screws out?
So behind it, there's a little push down, and it like wants to eat your finger. So hold it down, and it's like one person, slightly push forward, push that way.
That's not fine. That's not
Yeah, as soon,
There you
that's,
go. Ow! It pinched me.
I told you, if you have somebody else do it, invariably they'll pinch you.
Do we
just lift it straight up?
Yep, just lift it straight out. It's going to be connected still to the board, which we're going to take off that in a moment.
Wait, so we unhook all the wires?
Push it back. Now, it's going to be connected. Is everyone there yet? Still some people. It's connected. It's got the main thing, and that's got a lever on it. We're going to pull that up, and you probably have to rock that free.
Got it.
Don't panic. Just sit down. Is that good?
I cut myself on this metal.
You gotta press this. There's a little steel latch there.
Wait,
Take your thumb and we'll let you do it unless you do it that way. And then just turn it off. There's also another one that's plugged in right over here. There's a second.
We can set this down.
Okay, so take your thumb and press that.
Your thumb.
There you go. And now kind of rock it.
It doesn't go
It says
you're rocking it?
guaranteed voice.
Rock this way.
Cut my
Okay, and
finger
there's a
on
second one that's plugged right here.
Cut my finger on this part right here.
I think you might need to take it off.
You get it?
It's just that one thing on
Okay, now rock it.
Wait, what am I
You
doing?
good, Rocco?
Wait.
There's a second one right here.
I feel like I'm close to getting it out. Wait.
Mr. Mayor, I think you're right. I put my hand down and the screw stuck to my wrist.
That's funny.
What?
You got a magnet or?
Yeah, it's a magnet.
That's funny. That's a good way not to lose your screws. It's a bad way to play with computers.
Got it.
Okay, take out your power supply.
Oh,
I'm
The power supply that Dell put in here, because it's odd shaped, most power supplies when we get there are square. Because this one's like a step thing, it means you can't really upgrade the power supply, which means you can't add more stuff to the computer without draining the power. Now, power supplies actually hold power for up to 2 weeks. Meaning, you can turn off the power on this, open that top up, stick a screwdriver in it, and get electrocuted. It really has that much power. Okay, so I guess I gotta go too. Now, the next thing we're gonna do is you see the two serial ATA cables or the two SATA cables. We're actually gonna unplug them from the board, but look at where you got them from, so you'll know where to get back.
It was on the left. Orange is on the right.
Orange one was no, that's not. Orange one goes front.
Okay, the cable you see running in there right now is a SCSI cable. And you can tell SCSI cables because they're long and flat. If you look at this one, it is super flat. I'm not going to unplug it because it's not needed. And it's kind of a pain in the tuchus to get over here. So down here is the motherboard. Back here is a daughter board that's actually running your USB ports to the front. If you'll see where that SCSI cable runs, it runs right back to a little board back here. And that's running, if you look up front, that's running your USBs. Everyone see it?
Yeah.
Okay, the next thing we're going to do is pull out some memory. Now, these are RAM chips. Random access, yeah, she's right. Put the little black screws back in, and you have to put them in the back of the power supply. Thank you. Just screw them into the back of the power supply, those two little black screws, put them back where they came from. Thank you.
You set your computer on fire, Steve?
Let's not. These haven't been plugged in a while. I try not to do them too fast between because...
I have only one RAM, which makes me sad.
It's not one RAM. It's actually... when we get there, you'll actually figure out how much random access memory you have. Now, when we talk about memory, there are two types, and we're going to get over this too. There's main memory, which is our RAM. The RAM is that long chip in there. Okay, that's the RAM. Now the RAM holds memory and it's fast memory.
This time?
It's fast memory. But the minute you turn the power off and it loses everything it has. That's like what happens to you guys on Friday night. You walk out the door and your RAM is clear.
Hey! We don't talk about that.
Now, your secondary memory is actually your hard drive. It stores, but it's slow to retrieve. So we're gonna take the RAM chip out to do that. Press both sides and open them up. And it should pop out. If press the right and left side, it should pop out. Did you press both sides?
You press them in?
What are these things that look like Duracell batteries?
We'll get this.
There's like two different ways you can press. Like press or like.
You get them? If it's done right, it should just pop out. When you do that, just make sure you press down on both these. And it'll pop right out. RAM is nowadays RAM is pretty durable. In the early days, these little, if you look at the bottom of your RAM, you'll see a ton of little indentations. If one of those gets scratched, it ruins the RAM. So in the early days, you could really do some damage. We're pretty good.
Like Braille.
It does, but it's not. Now, the last thing we're going to do is involve your big screwdriver. We're going to take the fan off. So the fan has two screws on it. They're towards the front. We're just going to take this big cover off. So right there. And right there. The screws won't actually come all the way out, but they'll loosen all the way. And then you can lift the whole thing out.
Wait, that's it. That's right.
Yep, there's two. One there, one there. Did you get it out? Take the new bar screwdriver.
So yeah, you definitely
One up here.
all
Alright, so we're just going to pull these two screws. I will tell you, depending on the computer, every one of these things we're doing kind of changes how you do it. Heat sinks are funny in that there's like so many different types of heat sinks. So, did you unscrew it? You should be able to pull it back towards the back end.
Mr. Wheeler, I need to borrow that again.
So you should be able to lift it like a hinge, and then once it's up, you can lift it out. On the back is a thermal paste. Don't rub it on yourselves.
Wait.
What are you talking about?
Ours is like unscrewed, but like.
Okay, take this and pull it back towards.
Oh.
And then lift it straight up. Straight up now. Okay, go. Justin, Ms. Marth needs you again. President's back on the phone. Okay, so.
Mr. Wheeler, I'm having trouble.
Okay.
I have the screws out.
Okay, so just pull it straight back towards yourself.
Oh, you're gonna have to give it some force.
Yeah.
I was scared
That's
of
all right.
Mr. Wheeler.
I appreciate those of you asking, because give it. Okay, so we're gonna take it, pull it right back. And then lift it
Hey,
back.
this one got some weird stuff on it.
Okay, that's called the weird stuff.
Kinda cold.
This stuff here is called thermal paste.
Not really.
And if you get on it on your stuff, it's not gonna hurt you, but it's gooey.
It feels nice.
That thermal paste, and we'll talk about that, that transfers heat. The biggest enemy to all computers is heat. Remember that because it's a test question. Everything about, it's fine, y'all say it a bunch of times. So we're going to identify the parts of this motherboard. In given time, which I probably won't make today.
Is that thermal paste that CPU have?
Yes, that's all CPU with thermal paste on. Very good.
Do I get extra money for that?
No. So, we're going to go through this, and I'm putting down here to show where I'm going to start. I'm going to start right here.
The wire?
Right here, at this spot right here. See, look at that.
What spot?
Right here.
Uh-huh.
And we're going to talk our way around it. Okay? Everyone got that?
Yeah.
You get a pencil, pen.
I identified the parts, the CPU on this one too.
I would like that. That would be a good eraser.
CPUs are easy to find. All you gotta find is the one that looks like it's inside of a wrap.
Right now they are. I will tell you that CPUs have changed a ton in how they look, but they kind of had the same. So we'll start over here.
Mm-hmm.
And these are our ATX slots.
Wait.
ATX slots. Sorry, PCI slots.
Are we on this?
We're on, because I'm on the wrong one.
Wait, which one are we on?
PCI
So-
slot.
These are your PCI slots. These two. There's a short white one and a long white one. And for you guys on your diagram, it's the far left
It's like this one.
right here.
Alright, I got
And are we working down or up?
We're gonna work around to the right, but I'll keep showing you.
That's not annoying.
So, and it's funny, the picture you have actually cuts the whole side off, but it's really there because you'll see it says slot 3. So slot 2 and slot 3, they're PCI slots. They hold cards. So if you wanted to put in a card that did like FireWire,
What's that?
well, it's a different type of media to transmit data. If you wanted to put one of those, you put it here. If you wanted a sound card, you'd put it here. The slot next to it is an AGP slot. Accelerated Graphics Processor, AGP slot. It is where you put a video card. Without a video card, most of these things suck. They get okay graphics, but nothing. When we fire these up, you'll see they don't have much graphics power. What? Ask me.
Where did you run? That does not look like a
Right here. AGP. We're going clockwise. That's an AGP slot. It's where we put in video cards. I do have some. We will eventually play with the other motherboards that are broken out of computers. So when we get to those parts, this lecture will probably go a little bit in tomorrow because we'll get those out and let you play with those. Those I don't care if they get broken because they're not going to ever work again. Okay, what's next round? Okay, this up here is called the socket. It contains the CPU.
I just put down CPU.
Put socket. The CPU is what's inside it. This is actually called a socket because you plug it in. In the early days, there were pins, and you plug them in just like you would. You know where we're at?
Yeah.
Okay. Socket. SOCKET. Socket and AGP was back here. When we go around here, oh, I'm sorry. Let's look right here. This is a heat sink. And sink is spelled SYNC. Heat sink.
Oh, it's like there's sentence.
Different kind of sink.
But that's how it's spelled.
SYNC.
Oh, okay.
So this big thing we took out before is a heat sink. What it does is it transfers heat out of the CPU into this large aluminum piece. Aluminum copper transfer heat very well. And then a fan that you see up there pushes air across it, getting rid of the heat. Because I told you, heat is the enemy of computers. If we were not to put this back on, and we turn this computer on, in less than a half a second, the computer would be dead. The CPU would be burned up and gone.
So we'd have to give it a second.
Well, I already did that to one of these in here because I didn't put the paste back
I
on.
know which one it is.
No, but we'll know when it beeps. I got enough that some of them will fire up.
Two of them.
I'm not worried about it. Over the years, I'll lose them. I don't care. So let's come around. So we got heat sinks. Anytime you see a large mass of aluminum, and it'll either have, I've seen some where they're square stocks, they look like buildings, and some that are ribbed. What it is underneath there you've got a processor of some type, since nowadays computers aren't just one single processor, they're a bunch. And they're transferring heat. When you guys have cell phones and you turn them on and you're using a long time, they get really hot, don't they?
Yeah.
I've noticed that. I've had to put mine in the fridge one time.
That's because
Hot.
cell phones suck at getting rid of the heat. There's just, I mean, no matter what they do to do it, it is tough to get the heat out of it.
Honestly, if you use your phone so much that it gets hot, I think it's just time.
My friend used this phone.
Careers.
My friend used his
No,
phone
I
so
put it in
long.
the fridge and then I forgot where I
Okay,
put
if
it.
you join them, and we'll catch up. I'm putting it on video so you can catch up with the rest too.
And my friend had his phone on so long that it started to melt his case.
That is rare. You'd have to have a lot of stuff going. It
Like
should
he falls asleep with it playing.
Okay.
With the
Again.
charger in it.
So do I.
Probably he's using an overcharger. So let's talk about these right here. These two slots, we pulled the RAM chip out. These are our memory slots. This computer only accepts 2 memory cards. My computer at home accepts 4. That little server back there we cracked open before, guys saw that it had 12 possible memory
That's
cards.
a lot of memory.
That is a ton of memory.
That's like 14 gigabytes.
So these are our memory slots. Going back, this big long thing we pulled out before is our ATX Power Supply. It's that big white. That was that large cable that came off the power supply. That came off the power supply that we plugged in. That's called an ATX Power Supply. Oh, cheese paper?
Oh, yes, please.
Sorry.
Thank you.
So that is our ATX plug-in. That's where all your power comes into your computer. They can get odd looking. Depending on the computer you get, this is the motherboard. Every bit of power coming through the motherboard is coming through this spot.
Mine looks like.
Wait, what was before this?
The memory cards?
That's what I
Memory slots?
Power supply.
And then this one is the
Looks
ATX.
like wrong.
These are memory slots. This is the
You know
ATX.
what I mean?
That big white thing is the ATX. Okay? Alright. So everyone, then we've got two little things I told you before to watch where you took your SATA cables out of them. The one's blue and one's black. There's actually a white one if you look farther to the left. There's a white one in the middle of nowhere. Those are SATA cables.
Mine was blue.
How'd
and
you
Yes.
say
orange.
S cables?
SATA cables. An S cable is something different.
Wait,
So these three slots are SATA. This white one is not used. It's in case you wanted to upgrade and you did something that required input, like you put a big
wait,
graphics
what was
card.
the one under ATX Power Supply?
Hey, what's the one?
These right here?
Below.
The one, well, the one that came after ATX.
That's what I said. SATA slots.
SADA.
SATA.
SATA.
Standard something transfer. I wish I could remember. Okay. Now we're going to kind of look at the back of the computer because all this stuff on the back, and you can actually, she's just doing it over there, you can lift this little gate out of the way. So you can see the back, all these slots on the back are actually connected straight to the motherboard. You see that?
Not even.
If you have a higher end computer, you're not going to have a ton of these slots because they're all going to be based on cards that you put in there.
Gotcha.
So these are the low end stuff that you would hook up. If your grandma was hooking up a computer and she doesn't care, she might hook up that. If she's hardcore gamer, she might want more.
Yeah. She's cracked at Fortnite.
There's a ton. So
My grandma.
these are your audio inputs and outputs. If you look at them, you'll see the green one shows a little speaker going out, and the red one is a mic, and it's got a blue. Dell was pretty kind for a long time. They would color the cables so that anybody could put it together, but people still required people to put them together. So they're on the back. That is the lower right-hand corner.
Uh-huh.
Those are your audio jacks.
Good guy.
This port up top here. This port right here is your Ethernet port. Ether. E-T-H-E-R. Ethernet.
I have an Ethernet cable that plugs into my PS4.
Isn't Ethernet like
I
the
really
best,
did my in
the
backwards.
fastest internet?
Well, Ethernet is a direct line. Whereas Wi-Fi, you're going through the air, which means there's more corruption.
So Ethernet is better?
Ethernet is faster.
That's what Xavier uses.
If you're playing hardcore video games and you're playing off Wi-Fi, I laugh at you.
I want to get an Ethernet, but I can't.
Miss Holly and Miss Martin and Jojo.
Bye, Jojo. You'll be back, guys. Boom.
Next.
Okay. Down below here and across, we have some USB. We have 6 USB ports. Do you see them? There are 6 down the back here. They're just USB ports. This computer has a stupid number of USB ports.
That's a lot of USB.
If you look at the front, it's got more USB ports on the front of it.
That's a lot.
The monitors we have actually allow you to plug in more USBs. By using one of these, you get 4 more of that.
Which one is it? USB? Which one?
USB. On our sheet, we are right here now. That's the USB port.
Okay.
Okay?
Oh, I missed the one right here. I missed that one. I didn't.
This is
SATA.
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 So, now we're going to get to some other ones. And you should recognize this, because this is one of those cables I made you look up. It's a VGA port. Video graphics port. That's where you plug your monitor in.
Did you? I thought you said something else. I thought you said that's where you plug your drum on.
Those monitors
box right there?
This one, yeah, this one still has it. Those back there have it. Those are what we'll be using. We had a ton of those. This one's a little bigger. I have it. It's not officially mine. It's in storage because nobody needed it. So, okay, everyone with me? The top magenta one is called a parallel port. Good afternoon. Okay. 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 All right. Bye. Okay. That big one is called a parallel port. And what it's using, and it's on there because remember what I said about having a lot of old machines? People bought machines that my dad used to operate one that sewed quilts. 12 feet wide. Quilts for hotels. Well, that machine cost a ton of money. Instead of making a new machine every time we got upgrades to computers, they just make ports so that we can plug that older stuff in. This is called a serial port.
Cereal?
Serial, S.
Oh.
S-E-R-I-A-L. So serial port was used for things like joysticks and mice and other things in the earliest days. Again, most computers still have these because there are a lot of legacy things out there. Yes, sir.
So joysticks as in like playing Pong?
Yes. Joystick, mice, trackballs, they're there still, and you'll still find them even today, although, well, I bought a gaming one this time.
What do you mean, legacy?
When I say legacy, I mean older systems.
Wow.
If you go into the General Motors factory and you're looking at those robotic arms that were purchased in the 70s or 80s, they cost multiple millions of dollars a piece, right?
Right.
When you buy a new computer, you don't want to have to buy a new arm. It's just too expensive.
Right.
But so we keep these legacy port systems there so even new computers can plug in. It's easy to reprogram. It's hard to refurbish.
I wish I was able to reprogram.
We were talking about that earlier today. All right, and the last thing is this battery. Somebody said before. This is called the CMOS. C-M-O-S. The CMOS, there's a battery in there for every computer. C-M-O-S.
Not much of a battery.
It is not much. It's funny. They're supposed to have a life of 5 years, but like these have probably been in here 15 years and they're still functional. What that does, that battery, if unplugged, will make your computer forget what date it is.
Like my grandpa?
No. This battery powers the internal clock on the computer. So the computer constantly knows the date and time. Because computers run on a date and time. They have to be updated all the time. Because you cannot start up a computer without the computer knowing seconds. It's got to have a timer system going so it can log things on. Does that make sense? So you'll see a lot of these batteries in there. They last forever. I've never had to replace one in a computer.
Where's this little switch on the back?
We'll get there. We're going to talk to power supplies in a bit. That little switch is uber dangerous. And that's why a lot of people go into Europe fry up their computers.
Uber dangerous.
Okay. Any questions on motherboards? How much time do we have? So any questions right now on the motherboard as you see it?
Yeah, what do they do? I didn't get that.
The motherboard controls all the components for the computer. You'll notice that everything is plugging into the motherboard, isn't it? Everything coming from outside the computer is plugging in. Everything going out is plugging into the motherboard. It controls everything, just like your mom.
Mama don't control everything.
You're okay. I just recorded this on video.
She doesn't. She controls most things, not everything though.
So the motherboard controls everything. What is the biggest danger in computers? What's the... Say it?
Getting electrocuted?
No. What's the biggest danger for computers?
It catching on fire.
Oh, not necessarily on fire.
Hacking.
Heat.
People giving personal
Heat.
information and blackmail.
You've got to lose heat. Because it builds up, it destroys. Now, in laptops and phones, Why is heat such a problem?
Because it's hard to get rid of it.
It's hard to get rid of it, but heat is hard on the computer, but what's it really, really hard on? It's hard on batteries.
I still don't know what it is.
How many of you have home don't over tighten those. You shouldn't be undoing anything except the black ones. That's it. There's 2 little black screws on there. Now, get in the habit of not opening power supplies. That's it. Don't open them unless you're a power supply technician or something like that, or you know what you're doing.
I am,
Not.
yes,
You're not.
yes.
I do have almost every part out here taken apart in the closet so you can see the insides.
Are you certified to do this?
To do what?
Are you like able to like?
No, heck no, I'm not an electrician. Me and electricity don't get along. It electrocutes me, I look stupid. That's it. Okay, so we're gonna put the little gate back in. Although I think I locked my gate. Oh, there it is. We're gonna put the little gate back in the back. And we're gonna put the top on. And we're gonna put the top on, but we're gonna leave the components out.
Stop the cap.
Putting the top on, you guys got no problem. Look at the little really sharp parts. They go near that thing that you pulled, that little lever you pulled.
Other side.
Hold on. God, y'all are moving too fast.
This one, be nice. Don't hurt.
Look at that.
Whoa, you autism.
How does this go up?
Straight on.
Mr. Real?
Down and slide. Come on, use your anger.
Yeah.
Let me see your anger.
I want to see my anger.
Well, you kind of, some people hit in the middle, but not you.
It's because I'm different.
Okay, nope.
Bruh.
You gotta put this side in first.
See what you do.
And then just in the middle. Pretend. There you go. Alright, take your computer and put it over there in that first spot, and then take your components and on top. Okay, take your computer.
Wait, put it where?
Right here. Sit back here, and then take your components on top. Sit down here. Hey, you guys help us put the components on top. You guys, nope. There you go. I love Dell, the fact that you can open them. See your components on top?
Drop it on the car.
No, that's a hot dog. He said.
Alright, for those of you online, I'm going to leave you here. I'm going to be showing them motherboards.
Then I was like, oh, it's all.